All right, welcome here. It's a News4JAGS Plus. We got a little bit of Jaguars news that we had to chat a little bit about today. So Trent Baalke, Jaguars general manager, outed a little bit as the Jaguars move on. Actually, probably helps if I turn my mic on for this. You know, but the Jaguars going to be shaking up their general manager, their front office, as they move on from general manager Trent Baalke.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they did this now. You would have thought he fired Doug Peterson. He said to Jim Fournette, can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They've gone through now. Ben Johnson's gone. Liam Cohen's gone. Aaron Glenn is gone. So now you only have Robert Saleh and you have Patrick Graham that you're interviewing. It seems like Trent Baalke was the issue of why you couldn't get one of those guys. It has to be. You don't, as an offensive, like, I'm going to ask you this. If you're an offensive coordinator and you get to be a head coach, you would take that without a doubt, right?
Sure.
But something has to be wrong with you deciding to stay for the team that you're at. You get a little bit of a pay raise, but if you were a head coach, especially here, you would have gotten a much bigger pay raise. So it seems like out of everything, Trent Baalke must have been the issue, and that's why people don't want to come here.
Sure. Look, Shad Khan mentioned during his postseason kind of wrap-up that if he realized Trent Baalke was part of the problem and not part of the solution, that he would be willing to move on. Clearly, he's gotten to the point where he saw that. Maybe part of the precursor to all of this was earlier today. It looked like they were going to be trying to interview Liam Cohen for his second interview with the team, and he looked like the prime candidate to be the guy moving forward. Liam Cohen instead agrees to an extension to stay as the offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which lines them up to say, well, what else you got? And here we go, as they say, move on from Trent Baalke. Now, the question is, that at least comes to my mind, is it too late to get Liam Cohen back out on the phone and say, hey, buddy, we shook some things up for you. You still want to come to Jacksonville?
Yeah, that's the one thing, and I don't even know this. If he already signed the contract with the Bucs for the more money with the new contract, I guess, can he then turn around and say, "Oh wait, just kidding. I'm actually going to go and be the head coach"? Like I know in college, if you're an offensive coordinator and you have a contract, but you go to be a head coach somewhere else, that contract kind of voids because you're getting the promotion. That's how college coaching contracts work. I wonder if that's the same here in the NFL.
Same thing in the NFL.
Okay, so there you go.
He'd 100% be available. And the question is, did he actually even sign it yet? You can agree to terms on a contract and have not put pen to paper. So the Jaguars in the middle of this head coaching search. Now, keep in mind, technically speaking, they didn't hire Doug Peterson until February 3rd, the last go-around when they did this thing. So it took a little bit of a while that time, and that was a long search, one that never really felt smooth, and this one kind of feels like it's kind of going the same way.
Disaster.
It's a little bit of a disaster. This has been far from ideal. The Jaguars now need a head coach and a general manager, and they're starting from scratch here on January 22nd, where it's not an ideal position to be in, but the one thing that Shad Khan has talked about for years is that he wants to have a head coach-centric model. He wants the head coach to be the leader while the general manager is kind of a supplement to them. So we'll see ultimately if the new head coach decides to bring a general manager with them, what that looks like. For now, Ethan Waugh, who is the assistant general manager under Trent Baalke, is going to be taking over as the interim general manager for the Jaguars, and we'll see how long he holds that title for.
Maybe he does well with it, and maybe he gets promoted. It's not...
Hey, that's how they got Trent Baalke. He was the interim general manager after Dave Caldwell left. So that's one of the things that... That's one of the things that Shad Khan has pushed back against, and people have been asking, a full hard reset. And there's a part of me that thinks that at least he doesn't maybe understand what we say. When we say a hard reset.
And I agree with that.
Because when we asked him about it, he started throwing in team doctors. Shad, I don't think anybody's asking about Kaplan and the staff. We're talking about the front office and the coaches. A full hard reset to where you get a front office group and a coaching staff that are on the same page.
Yeah, just because Trent Baalke's fired, that doesn't mean that the interns and the support staff and all of those people are fired. They still have a job here. Now, if those people aren't good, then maybe they're getting fired not because of Trent Baalke. But I think I do agree. Maybe he interpreted it as, okay, get rid of every single person. When we mean, or when I interpret, when I mean a full reset, get rid of the head coach, get rid of the general manager. Those are the issues. That's why the Jaguars partially weren't winning. Maybe it's just because the team was just a mess in a whole different, instance. But that's what I interpret as a full reset. And you may be different. I'm not saying get rid of the whole coaching staff, whatever. But you don't have to get rid of everyone under general manager, everyone in the front office. That's not what I was interpreting or what I mean when I say full reset. I just mean Doug Peterson needed to go. Trent Baalke should have gone at that point, because now you already lost Ben Johnson, who was the #1 pick everyone wanted.
Sure.
I would be shocked if they hire a defensive-minded coach when you have Trevor Lawrence, still-ish young in his career, with all the aspirations that he has. You also have Brian Thomas Jr. You have an offense that can be good.
Sure.
So I would be shocked if they hired a defensive-minded player. But you know what? Listen, Robert Saleh and Patrick Graham aren't bad. I'm not saying that. I just would be shocked if they hired them.
You lost me at Robert Saleh and Patrick Graham aren't bad.
You know what? We have to be
I was
nice.
listening until then, and then my brain turned off.
I didn't want to be too mean.
If they hire, I said it earlier this week, and I stand by what I said. If they hire Robert Saleh or Patrick Graham, it will be must-see TV, because I will have a meltdown here on Channel 4. No. Robert Saleh was just fired from the New York Jets. And we can talk about, it was a bad setup, and he had Zach Wilson and then Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers was hurt, and then Aaron Rodgers came back, and he was in an impossible situation, and Mike White, and this, that, and the third. That's fine, dandy, and grand. We can talk about that all day long. Patrick Graham, on the other hand, while his defenses have been fine, they've been fine on bad teams. It's one thing to have an elite defense on a good team, but just like we've seen here in Jacksonville, just because the defense is mediocre on a bad team, where teams honestly ain't even trying to score too many points against you, doesn't mean that you have a good defense. Move on from that. They can, if they're going to go with somebody like that, like you need to try and get Liam Cohen at this point. I was never big on Ben Johnson. I think maybe he'll be fine. We'll see. I love Darren Glenn. I knew he wasn't coming to Jacksonville. But Liam Cohen right now is the guy. If it's not Liam Cohen, then you got to wait a little bit. You can wait and see if you can talk to Joe Brady when the Bills are done, or in the gap week between the Super Bowl. You can talk to Todd Monken again, who's the Raiders offensive coordinator. Raiders are done. I'm good on that. You can also try and talk to Cliff Kingsbury. Look, Cliff Kingsbury's an option. He's done some really good things with Jalen Daniels there in Washington. Justin Barney's been on that one the whole time, and I've kind of been like, but you know what? At this point, you've reached the spot where you don't have a ton of options.
I have been a big Joe Brady fan ever since LSU. What he did to that LSU offense, and then he was obviously promoted to the NFL. I think he would be great. Listen, the Jaguars have done all the older coaches they brought in, and I'm not calling Doug Peterson old, but older. Why not try someone young? If you're going to bring in a new general manager as well, why not try someone young? I think a younger, and we've heard the players say this in their locker room interviews after the season, they said they wanted someone younger that could relate to them. You're not going to bring in someone 50 and over to relate to 21 and 22-year-olds. And Joe Brady's mid-30s, I believe, late 30s.
There are different levels. It depends. So Pete Carroll, for instance, was in his 70s, but he still found a way to relate.
He's young at heart.
He's young at heart.
I love him,
So there's different levels, but I own 100%. Yeah, the players said they wanted NIL-era coaches or someone who can talk to them. And while there's pros and cons to that, there are coaches like Sean McVay, who was very young when they hired him.
Very true.
But then there's Andy Reid, who still does a good job, even though he's not as young. I mean, so there's a handful of ways you can go on this thing. I don't know if I'd go Todd Monken, who's probably one of the older candidates on the list. I don't think I'd go down that road right now. I think Joe Brady's good. I think what he's done. But the question you have to ask with Joe Brady is, you won a national championship with Joe Burrow, and now you're having a ton of success as an offensive coordinator with Josh Allen. What can you do if you don't have one of those guys?
That is very true. That is very true, because Trevor Lawrence is not them at this point. But could he become them?
Maybe.
I think you guys talked about this in the News4JAGS podcast, which you should stream on wherever you listen to your podcast, or on News4JAGS.com. Nice plug, right? You guys have talked about it where you want a coach like Liam Cohen. I think you said this during one of the shows. You want a coach who's good, but hasn't peaked to his full potential yet. Maybe that could be Joe Brady, or maybe they'll go get Liam Cohen or look at someone else who can turn Trevor Lawrence. He just needs to, like, that one extra bit he needs, you know? Like, he's not at his full potential. I think we can all see that. Who can turn him into that elite quarterback? And maybe was Joe Brady a big part of why Joe Burrow was so successful at LSU, I mean, Josh Allen's really good no matter what, but why Josh Allen has taken really that huge step this year of being an MVP.
Yeah, look, I mean, Joe Brady's definitely done some good things. If they could somehow get back in the Liam Cohen sweepstakes, I'd be a listener. If you can, I guess, talk to Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, there's really not, the list is kind of starting to dwindle at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're really going to go back to the well and start completely from scratch on this thing. And even then, if you say, all right, we're going to open it up and expand, there's not a whole lot of people that really are going to pique your interest where you say, all right, there we go, you know? So, I mean, maybe Bill Belichick isn't
I was just thinking, but he's now in the NIL version of college. He's done it for, what, a month? So maybe.
Maybe that was enough. He saw enough recruiting. Please, not Bill.
Yeah,
Bill
I know. I don't think Bill should come here, too.
No.
I don't think they should do a full reset, though. You've already given so much time and effort, and time is money, by the way. My dad always told me that. Time is money. You don't want to waste all of that time that you've spent. You've already looked at probably the and maybe they didn't interview candidates at first because they were so gung-ho on the other guys. Maybe they'll go and, you know, do Zoom interviews with some other candidates that they've kind of put in like second tier. Yeah. You never know. Yeah,
Cliff Kingsbury is one of the guys that they have not spoken to at all.
Yep.
So adding him to the list would be definitely at least a deeper search or an expansion of the search. But now you have to add another layer to the search because you need a general manager, which there are a handful of fantastic front office candidates out there around the league that I think they could add to try and shake things up. Look, we'll see, but one way or another, they kind of got to kick this thing into overdrive. We'll have plenty more coverage over on Channel 4. We'll have an update coming your way in the 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news, all the news. And we'll have a brand new News4JAGS podcast coming your way a little bit later on tonight. And you can always read the stuff by heading over to News4JAGS.com and clicking on that handy dandy sports page. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us for this little bit of a Jaguars breaking news update. And we will be back during your next newscast with more on the Jaguars shakeup.